and consult you on how to drive sustainable growth in the American market. We are so excited to present our recommendations to you. I am so proud to introduce our team here at Greenway Consulting Group. My name is Aviva, and I will be your regulatory and public policy consultant. Ciari will be your sustainability consultant. Josh will be your financial transformation consultant. And Tay will be your business conduct and ethics consultant today. Now let's talk a little bit about BYD. To put it lightly, you guys are doing phenomenally well. So, BYD is the world's largest manufacturer of electric vehicles when including hybrid vehicles. You guys are increasing at 2.5 times the rate of your closest competitor, Tesla, and hit almost 2 million in global sales in 2022. That was a 184% increase from 2021. While BYD is a Chinese multinational company, today we will be focusing on their US operations primarily. So in the US, BYD operates primarily on a B2G, which is a business to government basis. Because they have not had any plans to launch any passenger vehicles in the US so far, their primary focus is electric buses and trucks. They started their journey in Lancaster, California about a decade ago, and have since produced over 1,500 buses from their manufacturing plant. Their largest client is the state of California, where BYD's buses constitute about 2/3 of the state's total e-bus fleet. And finally, in 2020, BYD ranked #1 US e-bus manufacturer by market share. That is no easy feat, but with all of this, there do come some areas of improvement. So here are some issues facing BYD today. First, there is a lack of brand recognition in the US. A lot of consumers are not aware of the BYD brand as of yet. Second, US-China relations are, let's just say, a little tense at the moment, and trust and credibility between Chinese companies and the US government is at an all-time low, and it so happens that the government is BYD's primary consumer. Sustainability-wise, although BYD aims to be a zero-waste company, it's not just there yet in the US. And finally, we as outside consultants could not find an updated ESG report for BYD in 2022. This could signal a lack of transparency to the public. So now we understand that when solving these issues and making business decisions, BYD leads with a strong ethical compass in mind. It was your own president and chairman, Mr. Chuang Fu, that said, BYD strives to continually make contributions to the protection of mankind's common home and the realization of sustainable development. This is a high bar, but BYD has a reputation as a company that cares about the planet and its people. And so we at Greenway created a strategy using the Golden Circle framework, which puts your purpose at the center of all decision making. So after a lot of analysis, we decided that your purpose and values most closely align with the UN Sustainable Goal number 12, responsible consumption and production. Having this goal at the center of decision making helps us align all of our decisions towards one common goal, and also will help ensure legal compliance and financial viability as well. This is our purpose, it's our why. Now, how do we go about doing this? Well, we're doing this through implementing a closed-loop supply chain and sustainable growth strategies. And that will be the focus of our presentation today. And finally, what are we doing? Well, we're building world-class electric vehicles, and you guys are already doing a phenomenal job there. So how do we go about implementing this closed-loop supply chain? Well, we have come up with a 3E program. First, extracting responsibly, which focuses on BYD's lithium extraction endeavors in Chile. And then expanding sustainably, which talks about how BYD can meet US's growing demand for e-buses. And finally, to close the loop, embracing recycling, where we will implement a direct recycling plan into BYD's manufacturing processes. I will now call over my colleague Tay to talk about the first one, extracting responsibly.
Thank you, Viva. The first step in our supply chain in producing and consuming sustainably is through extracting responsibly. Due to the current growth in demand in lithium, Chile is currently experiencing an exploitation of basic human rights, such as exploitation of mining workers, exhaustion of water resources, as well as contamination of fresh water. And you might be wondering, why does this change need to be made? And our proposal consists of two different parts. First, we propose BYD to join the International Lithium Association, also known as ILEA. And ILEA, this association, is a global association to gather all the key players in the lithium industry. And the association has 3 specific rules, and I would like to take the time to discuss them in detail. First, ILEA serves to be the voice of lithium industry. And this is especially important because Chile is one of the biggest producers of lithium in the world. And Chile, they just established their new constitution erupted by the violent protests against inequality, and it will emphasize higher working standards, reduction of water in extraction, and incentivization of foreign investment into the mining technology. Second, to promote ESG and sustainability. As a BYD serving as the market leader in lithium battery industry, they can mandate and implement a higher working standard as well as sustainable extraction methods for all of their lithium suppliers. Finally, ILEA serves to be the global authority of lithium on all of their knowledge, and it will incentivize environmentally friendlier innovation as well as fostering stronger global business relationships. And we understand BYD needs to find a partner with an established lithium mining company to reach its full potential, as well as strengthening their position in the lithium industry. And we utilize the build, borrow, buy framework, which is commonly used in companies to determine how they can expand into a foreign market, based on the characteristic of the resource. In the case of BYD, the resource gap is lithium, which has a medium relevancy as well as high tradability. And this approach has 3 specific benefits. First, this partnership can lower the risk into expanding into Chile. Second, it can utilize the existing infrastructure as well as the government relations. Third, it can acquire sustainable technology and as well as their expertise. And it's essential for BYD to find a partner who shares the same commitment on environmental sustainability. And you might ask, who did we choose and why? In 2022, SQM, which is the Chilean biggest mining company, has proposed a Solar Futuro project, which strives to reduce the brine extraction by 50% by 2030. And it will require $1.5 billion of upfront initial investment to build a new plant. And the new plant will incorporate 4 specific technological advances. First, advanced evaporation technology and seawater reduction. It will generate additional streams of fresh water, water with high salt content, as well as concentrated lithium and brine. And ultimately, these additional streams will feed into direct lithium extraction, which is the DLE technology. And legally speaking, direct lithium extraction is supported by the Chilean government, as well as it meets the sustainable goals emphasized by the new Chilean constitution. The technology allows recycle of 94% of fresh water in the process, as well as re-injecting the brine back to the ground, all while eliminating all the contamination from industrial, chemical, and extraction byproducts. And finally, the new plant will be able to increase the productivity yield of 5%, which equates to 1.5 million tons of lithium annually. Therefore, we propose BYD to invest $375 million into the construction of the new plant, which is the 25% of the upfront cost, which will give the right to utilize the 25% capacity of the new plant. And according to the current report, Chilean mining operations are consuming 65% of total available water source, and it is forcing the local farmers and indigenous communities to compete over water source. And if you follow this current trend, these mining companies are expected to utilize 100% of water source by 2024. And however, with the successful implementation of Solar Future project, BYD is expected to break even on your initial investment in the next 6 years due to the robust lithium market, as well as great cost saving from reducing a lot of water usage in the process. Additionally, with the new project, it is expected to utilize only 83% of utilization of water source by 2030, keeping up with the increasing demand of lithium globally. Finally, it is expected to extract additional 1.5 million tons of lithium, all while saving around 380 million liters of water, which will provide enough water for the community to consume as well as cultivate the agriculture. And now I'll pass it on to CR.
Well, thank you, Tay. So now let's talk about the second step, which is expanding sustainably. Do you know that 7 million, that air pollution contributes to 7 million of premature death in a year? So BYD, with their capacity, will be able to actually mitigate this issue. So we propose this solution, but first, before we continue, let's talk about the business composition of this recommendation. So our team has conducted market analysis to understand the demand and competition landscape of electric buses in the US. As my colleague has mentioned, we focus on electric buses because BYD doesn't have any plan to launch passenger EV anytime soon. So it's a little bit overview of their current manufacturing plant. Located in Lancaster, California, they cover 550,000 square feet with production capacity up to 1,500 electric buses a year. In addition to that, they have been using the renewable energy sources, including solar and wind power, also has received numerous awards and recognitions for its contribution to sustainable transportation and clean energy. With this being said, that BYD actually has done an excellent job, and it can meet the demand for eco-friendly alternatives. This is great because it's also supported by the strict government regulation and high awareness also from society, which is the public acceptance. But BYD has to do more in order to meet this demand, in order to meet this opportunity, because there are 4 other major players in the market occupying 80% of market share. Yesterday we saw Gillig, we haven't seen BYD. We're sure there will be more, but this is a great opportunity for BYD. And speaking about opportunity, here is the size of the electric bus market demand in the US. So on the blue color, you can see the prediction of the whole bus demand in the US, and the green side is for the BYD. So with the compound accumulated growth rate 50% a year, BYD is actually expected to have 22K bus by 2013. That is around 47% of the whole bus demand in the US. However, as the competitors increase, the market share also will be dropped. So therefore, we want to be a little bit more conservative with this. But even though BYD will still have a lot of chance to actually increase their market share with this demand. So here our proportion, right? With that size, we propose BYD to expand their manufacturing plant by its current size, 550,000 square feet, to double their production up to 3,000 unit bus per year. This expansion will cost BYD up to $250 million, and BYD can expect for return of investment in 5 years. But let's also look at the scenario when we don't have expansion. Without expansion, BYD will stay at their current production rate at 1,500 units per year, and stand a loss for opportunity of 1.2 billion, assuming that the gross margin for one bus is 20%. This is the part that I think everyone has been waiting for. So the legal implication, the current legislation supports the national demand, and BYD has done well in actually doing that to support that. So EPA, or Environmental Protection Agency, has launched the Clean School Bus Program, allocating $5 billion until the fiscal year 2026 for zero or low emission bus replacement. Out of this $5 billion, $500 million has been allocated. On top of that, the California Air Resource Board recently approved a regulation mandating 100% zero-emission public transit buses by 2014. What does it mean? BYD needs to increase the production in order to meet the demand because the market is there and a lot of chance to contribute to the society. Another great impact to the society. What is this manufacturing inspection plans mean? How does this matter? To the environment, if BYD reach its predicted demand by 2030, considering one zero-emission bus equal to 27 cars, BYD will actually remove 580,000 cars off the road, which equals to 36 million tons of carbon dioxide, 200,000 tons of nitrogen oxide, and 7 million pounds of diesel particulate matter. And here are some ethical impacts that will come from this environmental impact. So first, BYD will help to combat climate change for future generations. Second, BYD will help to improve air quality and community health. A little bit about this. Let me give you an illustration. Do you know that 90% of school bus actually is powered by the diesel fuel? And this is actually linked to a serious health condition for the young generation. Also, let's not forget the long-standing of discrimination policy to people, to community of color, people with low income living in the air-polluted city. These people are in serious health condition risk. And BYD, with their capacity, with their ability to actually increase the production, meet the demand, will help everyone, no matter their race, no matter their gender, to live in a healthier air. And bolstering eco-friendly reputation to inspire other companies in the long term. The next part and the last part will be explained by my colleague, Charles.
Thank you, Siari, for the impactful presentation. So the third and final step for our three-step process is to embrace recycling in order to decrease reliance on natural resources. So we advise BYD to implement a closed-loop concept. So previously, BYD is using a linear supply chain, which basically means that each stage of the supply chain is dependent on its previous predecessor. Because of that, it causes a lot of inefficiencies within the space, but also a lot of wasted materials to be disregarded, most of which gets into the environment and can cause massive impact to societies and nature itself. But having BYD implement a closed-loop supply system, it allows products that should have been thrown away to be reincorporated reincorporated back into the process, and that will save a lot of money for BYD, but also reduce the waste and impact. And additionally, it will increase brand equity for BYD. So the biggest aspect when it comes to recycling is being able to take the lithium battery and recycle it in an efficient manner. So we have a first-step approach to recycle the lithium. So the first step is to remove the electronics and to see if it can be reused in other vehicles. Step 2 is to take the lithium, freeze it, and then extract it so that it's in its bare state. Step 3 is to extract other valuable metals within the process, such as aluminum, copper, cobalt, and nickel, and being able to implement them in future batteries and other aspects of creating a car. And step 4 is to take the propylene glycol, which is a very toxic element, and being able to recycle it locally rather than being injected into the environment. So as you can see, BYD is very adamant about embracing recycling, as a quote from the website. And some of the ethical implications of recycling is that BYD in the United States currently only recycles 5% of the batteries in the American market, which means that the other 95% of batteries are being dispersed in landfills. And knowing about lithium, it can leach toxic elements, which can not only impact the environment, but also impact future generations. Therefore, it's very important for BYD to implement this strategy to ensure that the practices do not damage the society, but also being the forefront when it comes to setting an example for other electric vehicle manufacturers. So now we talked about the ethical aspect. Now we're going to dive more into the legislative. So in 2019, California passed the Assembly Bill Act of 2832, which developed policy recommendations in order to promote recycling of EV vehicles. But fast forward to 2022, 67 of California's legislation believes that EV manufacturers should be held responsible for the car battery recycling so that it doesn't have the environmental impact. And currently today, BYD should make the initiative to implement these changes because going forward, we see that California will pass more regulation in the space, and it also gives the opportunity for BYD to set themselves as the forefront when it comes to recycling sustainability. So now we talk about the ethical and legal aspect of this. What about the financial aspect? Because we need to determine the viability of this plan. So, so we basically broke down to see the cost that it takes to recycle, but also the revenue it can generate going forward. So some of the major costs that are associated with recycling is transportation of those raw materials, will cost around $3.3 per kilogram. Disassembly of those raw materials at $1.68 per kilogram, and recycling at around $14.93 per kilogram. So now, being able to extract some of those raw materials, we're able to break down to the elements of copper, magnesium, nickel, and lithium, each at a respective price of $34.9 per kilogram, manganese at $3.1 per kilogram, nickel at $22.9 per kilogram, and lithium at $30.8 per kilogram. So by taking into account, we forecasted the free cash flows of BYD up to 2030, and before the implementation of recycling, we got an NPV value of around $5.78 billion. However, by implementing the strategy, we estimate that BYD can increase the NPV to $7.17 billion, close to 25% increase. In addition, by being able to be the forefront of this can also have positive financial impact by being able to build that brand reputation and building a brand reputation and getting consumers who might have not been interested in the first place. Now to wrap it up, I'll have my colleague Aviva come up.
Thank you, Josh. So I'm sure you guys are all wondering, how does this all tie in together for our strategy? So, we want to see BYD make purposeful and ethical steps towards sustainable growth. We hope that the 3E process expands horizons for BYD's sustainability and ethical impact. And we have made sure that our solutions are legally and financially viable. Extracting responsibly ensures that BYD listens to the voices of indigenous communities who have gone unheard for too long. Expanding sustainably ensures that BYD meets future demand in the US for e-buses, and we can see that cleaner, greener future that we're all hoping to see. And to close the cycle, embracing recycling ensures that we incorporate our direct recycling processes into our manufacturing and do not leak toxic chemicals into landfills any longer. Now, we understand that these are a lot of changes to make, but change is the only constant at BYD. And if we hope to become the pioneers of responsible consumption and production, we can do it, one supply chain shift at a time. We at Greenway Consulting are so excited for the future of BYD and the world thanks to what you guys do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So if you'd like to come up to the front, the board has a few questions. Thank you for the presentation. The board is interested in the ethical issues you identified. How did you categorize that as ethical versus strictly just business issues that we have to face as a company? What is the difference?
So I can answer that question. In a way, I really don't think it's very different because BYD is a business, but their purpose, their ethics are the center of that business. It's the driving force. The chairman himself said that that is why BYD continues to grow and be a business. And so we really incorporated that ethical component into our business decisions. It's almost injected into it. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, beyond the statement of our chairman, do you recall seeing it in our mission statement?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, BYD calls itself the brand ambassador of clean, green energy. And so it's definitely part of who you guys are.
Okay. Would you like to ask a question?
Sure. Looking at the presentation, thank you very much for your time in putting that together. I'd like to get a little more information about the ILEA and joining that organization, and I guess the cost to us potentially, what makes up ILEA. I wasn't clear on that. If you could just give me more information on that organization.
Yeah, of course. So ILEA is a global association that can bring together major key players in the whole lithium industry supply chain. And the core members are the biggest lithium mining companies, and they share financial resources, technology, as well as knowledge when it comes to the whole lithium supply chain, as well as sustainable attempts they are looking to make improvements on. And possible costs you might have mentioned could be protection of IP, intellectual properties. However, as being a global association, there are strong safeties in place just to eliminate those possible effects, negative effects.
Okay. Is the association monitored by a third party to give it a seal of approval?
So there are third-party auditors as well as regulators who have to be present in every association meetings, who will serve as a safeguard in that case.
Okay. What about actual going to the mine and auditing practices there?
So that can be part of the ILEA. That can be part of the ILEA's initiative. However, we consider that. I believe that's where BYD can contribute the most, right? As being the market leader of a lithium battery industry, they have the power to mandate as well as implement higher working standards as well as environmentally friendlier technology when it comes to lithium mining for them to develop their relationship as well as continue their business relationship, yes.
What is the total investment you're asking us to make?
So it is $375 million, which is 25% of $1.5 billion that will be required to construct a new extraction plant in Chile.
And over what period of time is that investment?
So we did a direct comparison with Tesla's Gigafactory in Nevada. So it took them around 2 years to complete the manufacture of the factory. So we considered 2 years for the manufacturing the time period, and with the yield improvement from the lithium output, we were able to calculate 6 years, including the construction period, as the break-even point.
And from your work that you've done, where is the risk in success or not meeting that goal within that period of time? If we're going to look at that type of investment to get that kind of return, what are the risks that are built in there that we need to consider as we make this investment?
There are definitely regulatory risks as BYD is going to expand their operations into Chile. And that's where we believe the suggestion of licensing agreement with the SQM, which is the biggest Chilean national mining company. And I believe that can be very beneficial as BYD will be able to utilize the existing infrastructure as well as the already existing relationships they have with the government as well.
And when you talked about the competition that exists today, do you have any concerns that there will be others that will enter into the market in addition to what you identified over this period of time? Particularly, I'm thinking of Europe, some of the players in Europe.
Right, so that's a really great question. So we did identify the other four competitors in the market, right? So because BYD actually manufactures in the United States, and they're the top e-bus manufacturer in the US, they have a huge advantage over these other players. Some of those other players are, for example, they're Canadian, like you said, some might be European, but BYD is one of the only ones, aside from, I believe, Proterra and one other, Gillig, they're the only ones that actually manufacture here. They have a setup here. They have a base to go off, which gives you a huge advantage.
In addition to that, we also actually predict a few other competitors, like newcomers, in the next 2-3 years. But BYD has established a great relationship with the government, and because our segment is like business to government market, right? The business model of BYD. So BYD actually has a strong foot to actually be success in the market.
As we sit here as a board looking to make this investment, which we're going to, what is the biggest risk that you can tell us we need to consider?
Can we take a moment?
Well, I think the largest risk would definitely be the extracting responsibly aspect. I mean, it is in a foreign country. BYD did attempt to get a licensing agreement in Chile before, but because of all the political troubles in Chile, new constitution, etc., it didn't go through. That's definitely a risk, but you need a way to ensure that you're getting lithium for several years to come. There's no way around that because you're planning to increase production by a lot. And so even though this is risky, we truly believe that it's necessary. And it's a good risk to take for BYD's future.
In addition to that, so because the demand for electric vehicles has been increasing drastically over the next couple of years, the price of lithium will obviously skyrocket. So being able to extract the lithium in-house would be able to reduce this cost significantly rather than trying to get it out of the party.
Roger?
No, thanks for answering the question on the Chilean government, because I was curious how they're interacting with foreign investors and the safety around that. So can you address that maybe a little bit more? You touched on it a little bit. I mean, is the safety there for the investment? Is it going to be there long term, or is it going to be one of these things where we lose, lose with the next regime or government changes?
Yeah, that's a great. So they recently revamped their entire constitution, right? And so I do see, as the public policy consultant, I do see more stability in this area now. Chile is also one of the more developed countries in Latin America, or South America, so we're not taking the most humongous risk here. And so I think that, yes, there's risk involved. It's a foreign market. It is difficult to enter into, but we have a great relationship with SQM now that we're planning to build. They're a Chilean company. They have a lot of stronghold there. They have relationships there, workers who they have relationships with. So I think that definitely mitigates a little bit of the risk.
Additionally, as the lithium industry expects to grow significantly in near future, I believe BYD and SQM can be the standard of the industry, and the competitors will have to meet that standard, and they would have to exceed it in the future, which will help the industry and the people involved in it as well.
Yeah, another follow-up question on the earlier slides. You talked about our position in the marketplace, and BYD, we're Chinese-owned, and the facing of the consumers, we're not a known brand or entity in the United States in particular. So how could you link all of this up into giving us more brand recognition, more environmental leadership position with consumers? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so if I understand your question correctly, with this all our position, then how would BYD actually inspire our company and build that brand market?
And also get it in front of the consumer. How do we capitalize on this?
Yeah, that is one of the main problem of BYD, right? Especially with the stigma of being Chinese company. But then because that's why BYD currently partner with the government. They partner with the government, which will build trust from the customer. Because the more buses they put in the market, in the road, people will see, oh, BYD, what is that? What is that? So people will start thinking, oh, okay, that is actually Chinese company, Chinese brand. And in the long term, even if BYD wants to actually bring their passenger EV, people already has that brand awareness about BYD. So yeah.
And also when every student in every single county in the U.S. is driving on is riding on a BYD school bus, and their parents go and drop them off and see, oh, we're dropping them off in a BYD school bus. This is something I can trust as getting my kid to school every day. I think that definitely places something, especially in the minds of the younger generations and the adults, that BYD is a brand they can trust.
And it's not only in the West Coast, right? Like almost like 50 states, they have similar regulation, and BYD has relationship with California, but also some other states. Yeah.
Additionally, in an investor's point, it can increase the intangible asset value of BYD, and which will make it really more competitive with this direct competitor like Tesla. And I think that will definitely put BYD's name list higher on the list of investors who are more financially motivated.
We have significant investment over a period of time. Obviously, some upside but a lot of variables within your partnerships, relationships, regulatory issues. What is the exit strategy if at a point we run into issues that begin to slow us down? Do we have an exit strategy?
So I think this is best broken down in terms of like your exit strategy. So in terms of the licensing partnership, I think that I don't really see it being an issue in terms of like you needing to have an exit strategy. But if it does come to that, then BYD can pursue its own mines in Chile. It can have, so we talked about the build, borrow, buy model. It can always do the building part. So instead, focus its efforts towards R&D. Right now, we're trying to do instead of the buying part, can buy its own mines in Chile, get its own license and do it by itself. And startup, if you're not comfortable with pursuing a strategic alliance, there are other alternatives there. We just chose this alternative based on a business framework that we thought suited the situation best, right? In terms of expanding, of course, BYD can always choose to not expand by 3,000 units a year, right? If you think that's way too much of a risk and that we need something a little smaller than that, well, you're already expanding currently in Lancaster, so there's no issue there. Just we can expand by how many ever units you're comfortable with. And finally, with the direct recycling plan, you already recycle all of your batteries in China, 100% of them. I don't see how that mission shouldn't also apply to your US operations. There should be some type of consistency. And so I believe that will happen eventually anyways. I think that's an eventuality.
Great. I think we're short on time. Roger, anything else? Or you?
No, I'm good.
Well, thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. We can get out of our roles now as board members and give you some feedback. Your presentation was well organized. You started off indicating what your purpose is with the board. Each of you presented your section and were very confident in what you were presenting. It flowed, for the most part, very well. There's a lot of information in a short period of time, and that's always a challenge when you're dealing with a board. When you're dealing with the executive team, give more information. Dealing with the board, kind of want to narrow it down because their focus is on, what are you asking us to do? How much is it going to cost? What is the risk? Whatever. But a great presentation overall. The only suggestion I would make is include some identification of risk. What is the downside? Because particularly with the board, those are questions that will start firing you right away. This all looks good. Okay, tell me what the downside is. What do I have to worry about as a fiduciary? Do I have to look at that? But really well done. Really well done. Roger?
Yeah, I would echo what you just said. Great job. You all were very prepared, very at ease on the presentation. So it took a lot of time to prepare, get your notes together. Didn't see any, indecisiveness. So really good job. Again, on the presentations and slides, some of them were really, really busy. And to your point, most of the slides that you're making should be kind of short and brief. I would have probably just said, could you put something in there that was like big and bold, something that would really catch the board off guard and say, hey, this is where I wanted to go, and something, kind of gets their attention. That's always a positive thing. I thought the slide 25 wrap things up. That was the kind of slide you probably should have more of because it was kind of neat and clean. Here's how much it costs. Here's what the gain is. And that was a really good one. So I like that. And it was good stuff.
Great job. We wish you the very best as you continue in the competition. You're through the longest part, so you're on the downhill slope going forward. We wish you well tomorrow with the 90-minute and 90-minute.